What does Keir Starmer have to do to unlock the door to number 10?
I think turn the anger and, frankly, disgust with the Conservatives into a positive appetite for Labour. And that's what this week's conference is all about, because the Labour Party conference is one of those weeks in the year, actually a rare week in the year in terms of the coverage we get, where the voters can look through the window, judge whether we've got our house in order, and listen to the offer we're making to the country. And I think last year, in terms of the changes Keir made to the Labour Party, people could see he was getting the house in order. I think what you're seeing this year, and you'll certainly get from Keir Starmer's speech later this afternoon, and you got in bucket loads from Rachel Reeves yesterday in her speech, as I hope our country's next Chancellor, first woman Chancellor, we've gone further. We're ready to get the country back in order, because on so many fronts things are broken, whether it's the economy, our public services, the sense of law and order in our country, and Labour has serious people with a serious plan to get Britain working again and to give Britain the fresh start it needs.
How much has he rewritten his speech?
I think all of us, frankly, are still recovering from our jaws hitting the floor last week with that budget from Kwasi Kwarteng and the real-world consequences we're seeing overnight. The withdrawal of mortgage products tells us about the extent to which the Chancellor, our own Chancellor in this country, has frightened the markets, and as a result, lenders having to change the offer they're making to consumers. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If interest rates go up in the way that some people are predicting, that's going to be huge additional cost to people with mortgages. And what was the Chancellor's answer yesterday? Don't worry, folks, in November, I'm going to come out with some new fiscal rules, i.e. I've ignored all the ones I've already got and I'm rewriting the rules and making it up as I go along. This isn't serious leadership. It's a reckless gamble. And as Rachel Reeves said yesterday, it's not the Chancellor or Liz Truss that are going to be paying the price for this. He's gambling with other people's money. And we're seeing the consequences for that in real-world consequences right now, which will affect family finances in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
And in answer to my question, how much has he rewritten his speech?
I've not been looking over his shoulder.
I'm sure he's talked to you about it.
Yes, he has, and I think the fundamentals remain the same. Our analysis of where the country has gotten wrong, it's not new. We've had 12 years of this now, 12 years of the Conservatives making reckless short-termist economic decisions which haven't worked, making decisions which are short-termist in public services, which means they're now largely broken, and reckless short-termist decisions which mean that a whole range of things that really matter to people,
yeah, but to
Britain
clarify,
simply isn't working.
The leader must have rewritten his speech in order to take in what's happened with the pound and also with the budget.
Yeah, of course. But, we're determined to make sure at the next election we've got a serious plan that is both, I guess, radical in its ambition, but also reassuring, because I think people need to know that there are still some serious grown-up people in Westminster, that there is a serious alternative government available. And we're used to sort of left-right divides in politics and some of the conventional choices that people always have between Conservative policies and Labour policies. We've now got the central dividing line, which is also responsible Labour versus irresponsible Conservatism.
What are we going to do about people who want to borrow money for a mortgage? The 3 lenders are already withdrawn. I'm guessing that is just the tip of the iceberg. What would you say to them?
I'd say the cavalry's coming with Labour on 2 fronts.
That's potentially 2 years away. People are worrying about their mortgage tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. So what are you saying to the lenders this morning?
That's a fair challenge, but also, Kay, that's the one we're answering at this conference. Why is it frustrating for me being on your programme as an opposition politician? Because we can oppose, we can criticise, we can challenge the government. We're not in the driving seat making decisions, and we've had enough of that. And I think you've seen at the Labour conference this week a real change in tone, in emphasis, in optimism, a seriousness about the Labour Party and a determined to earn people's trust.
But let's talk about the viewers that are watching this morning. Lenders, you potentially could be in power in 2 years' time, is what you're saying, what you're hoping. These lenders will have to work with you then.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are you saying to them now?
So 2 things. One is Rachel Reeves set out yesterday. We've got a serious economic plan to provide certainty and stability for business investors, to restore consumer and business confidence. I think people look to Rachel Reeves not as the shadow chancellor, but as the chancellor our country needs. I think that's the first thing. That provides the conditions for a stable housing market. Secondly, grasping the nettle of reform we need in the housing market. What's one of the primary things we need to do? Address housing supply. So building more homes, homes to buy, homes to rent, affordable homes, that would make an enormous difference.
What about today and tomorrow and the next day? What are you saying to the lenders?
Well, I'd say to the lenders, I appreciate the Conservatives have made your job so much harder. I appreciate you need to revise the products that you're offering consumers as far as you can. You know, remember the fact that just over a decade ago that the country helped financial services out of the massive black hole they'd dug themselves into. Insofar as you can, with the conditions the Conservatives have given you, please do your best to look after consumers at this time. Think about those families that are worried about their mortgage payments, really want to get on the housing ladder, have been scrimping and saving to get that first deposit, to get on that first rung of the housing ladder, and now can see that dream of home ownership slipping away. Do your best to support those families. But my central message, because I'm not interested in opposition, and what we're saying today, I'm interested in what we want to do after the next election. The cavalry is coming with Labour. We've got serious people with a serious plan that would make an enormous difference to families right across the country and to businesses who are the backbone of our economy and will be the bedrock of economic growth.
I heard the boss described as Tony Blair 2.0. Is that a compliment or an insult?
Well, look at Tony Blair's record of winning elections and delivering real change in our country. I think, and put it this way, I've been a long-standing fan of Keir Starmer. If you told me when he was first elected leader of the Labour Party that he would have taken us from that crushing defeat in 2019, worst defeat since 1935, to a position today, looking at some of the opinion polls where we're sort of, I think kind of double looking as Labour politicians, thinking, look at these polls, look at what it would deliver. Remarkable transformation. I guess the one thing I do want to say, though, to your viewers in the context of those polls is two things. One, we're not taking any voters for granted. We're going to work hard to earn people's trust. And two, we're not relying on the Conservatives to fail to be in government. We've got a positive, serious alternative to offer the country. And at the next election, I don't want people to vote for Labour as the least worst option. I want people to go to the ballot box voting to give change a chance with Labour, with the hope, belief and conviction we can deliver real change for people across our country.
What a problem you're going to inherit, though, when it comes to the economy of the country.
And that's why, Kay, often change is the biggest risk, and people are sometimes frightened of change.
Put tax up straight away, wouldn't you?
But risk, I'll come to the point about tax. Let me at this point. The risk now for our country isn't change with Labour, it's continuity with the Conservatives. And on taxes, we have made the running against the Conservatives on personal taxation. I don't think national insurance would be reversed. I don't think the basic rate of income tax would be being cut without Labour making a real run on the argument that says Conservatives have gone for the pockets of working people as the first and last resort. Well, you saw yesterday from Labour, from Rachel Reeves, that serious plan for economic growth, which would inject both long-term growth in the economy, whilst at the same time delivering against the big challenge of our time in terms of climate change. There's a serious economic plan there.
There won't be an increase in upper rate tax, though, back to 45 or higher.
Top rate of tax we're bringing back. Do you know what we're going to do, which I'm cock-a-hoop about? Serious workforce plan for the NHS, the biggest expansion of staff training in the history of the NHS.
The reason I ask you about 45% because it's actually it only costs about £2 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the problems that you'll be inheriting.
But here's the thing, Kay, especially when people say, top rate of tax, what difference would that really make in terms of public finances? I am now able, as I think the country's next Health Secretary, to double the number of medicine training places at university, to have an additional 10,000 places for training for nursing and midwifery places, double the number of district nurses, put 5,000 more health visitors into the health service. A serious long-term workforce plan so that we can arrest this decline in the NHS.
But that's nothing to do with what we were just talking about with the £2 billion.
But that's what I'm spending the £2 billion on. Rachel, and let me tell you, on behalf of the rest of the shadow cabinet,
£2 trillion in debt.
It's not easy getting money out of Rachel Reeves because she wants to make sure that every penny is well spent. She tests our assumptions and our demands, but that £2 billion, do you know what that would deliver? It will deliver the bedrock for the rebuilding and renewal of the NHS for the 21st century. It will also help the economy. There are 250,000 people...
How would you start to pay off our debt?
Because, I'll tell you why, Kay, because there are 250,000 people in our country who are economically inactive for no other reason than they are sick and they are tired of waiting. If we get those people treated faster, we get those people back into the labour market, That's one of the drivers of growth. If we invest in the way that Rachel outlined yesterday, in the new industries of the future, in a plan to put new industry, new jobs in parts of the country that have been deindustrialised and left behind for too long, that's how you get growth into the economy. You don't get growth in the economy by letting boom time for bankers and abolishing the cap on bankers' bonuses. You don't get growth in the economy by making a corporation tax cut
you do
for the
if you're a
biggest
Conservative
corporations.
government, that's what they say.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll look at the numbers, Kay, but I'll tell you what does
actually,
it say
while we're
about...
talking about numbers, I'm just looking at the latest opinion poll. Labour 17 points in the lead. But when it comes to who would be the better Prime Minister, the latest poll that we've got, Redfield and Wilton Strategies, they say 40% say Liz Truss, 36% Keir Starmer.
And that's why we're not taking people for granted. We know we've got more to do to turn disaffection with the Conservatives into a positive option for Labour. But it goes back to the point I made earlier, really. If you'd have told me when Keir was first elected leader of the Labour Party that he'd be able to grip this party and make it serious and fit for government in such a short space of time, I wouldn't have believed you. I'm not sure even Keir would have thought in his wildest
expectations. But the last 100 polls, Labour has been ahead in almost all of them. But when it comes to the actual leader, he's not. They think that Liz Truss, who a lot of people think that is mismanaging the economy, is still a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer.
Well, let me talk directly to those voters who haven't made their mind up on Keir Starmer.
Well, they have made their minds up.
And talk about that. Well, polls change and can be changed. So let me talk to those people who haven't made their mind up about Keir Starmer. The Keir Starmer I work with is serious. He's got serious experience outside politics. He does his job seriously. I think he'd be a serious Prime Minister. Secondly, the Keir Starmer I know is in touch with the concerns of ordinary people across the country. Wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His family aren't particularly wealthy in terms of his immediate family. And, he understands the pressure that people. He understands the pressure that people are under. But thirdly, and in stark contrast to Liz Truss, he has got the answers that our country needs. Whether it's rebuilding economic growth, rebuilding our public services, rebuilding a sense of hope and optimism about the future, rebuilding Britain's place in the world. You're right. If we win the next general election, Labour will inherit crises on all fronts: crises at home, crises abroad. Crisis in terms of the economy. Now, some of those things, like the war in Ukraine, are beyond the control of this Conservative government, and I wouldn't blame them for that. But there are a whole load of problems that are made in Downing Street, and after 12 years of Conservative government, asking this lot to fix those crises they've created is like asking the arsonists to put out the fire they started. It's not going to happen.
Quick thought before I let you go on the Liverpool dockers. Are you going to join them on the picket line?
No, we're going to do one better, actually. We're going to deliver a Labour government that improves the fortunes of working people across the country.
That's potentially in 2 years' time, but you won't join them on the picket line.
That's our job. No, I want to be in government. I want to be solving problems. I don't want to be out on the streets protesting. I've had enough of that. I did that when I was involved in student politics. I've done that for years as a Labour Party member. We are tired of protesting. We are ready to govern.
Okay.
That's how we make a difference for working people.
Final question. Should Jeremy Corbyn get the whip back?
No, I don't think he should.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thanks a lot.